Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Network. I am here in the cave of power in Rhode Island, the Senate chamber. The walls are green. I think God is looking down on us from above. And I'm here with another godly figure. His name is State Senator Sheehan, Jim Sheehan. And you are one of the lonely souls who's come out for Senator Bernie Sanders here. I think I spoke with the other one this morning, State Rep Aaron Regenberg. I want to talk about the polling closures here first. Sure. We've been going around a little bit, smooth lines, it seems, during the day. The Brown University students, two of the polling locations they could go to. I didn't see many students. Overall, the government here has kind of pointed to 2008, saying the polling station numbers aren't so far off from 2008 where there was high turnout. What do you have to say to that?
That's approximately right, although there were about 178 polling places open in 2008. And this election, there are 144, so about 34 fewer polling places. I don't know how to account for that, but in response to that, the Secretary of State and the Board of Elections has stated that they're sending out additional poll workers and additional polling places within the polling places. In other words, the more machines there.
33 less, or approximately that.
About 34 less, and I don't understand that. I think when it comes to democracy, you should err on the side of caution. Fewer than 2008. This appears to be that this would be a larger voter turnout maybe than 2008, although the equalizer may be the weather, which is actually, as you know, cold and rainy right now.
Right. Not that there's anything nefarious going on, but I mean, Rhode Island, the Democratic political figures here, by and large, are supporting Secretary Clinton.
I have to confess, I've been following Gina's career.
The Secretary of State, who oversees the voting changes and whatnot, was just at a Hillary event.
Yes.
Not recently.
She was in Central Falls when Hillary came to town at that particular event, yes.
And in terms of the Secretary of State so overtly backing Hillary, it opens her to questions about why so many polls have been closed?
I think it opens up her to the perception that she might be taking a side in this election, where she might otherwise be a little more standoff, which give people the impression that she's being more objective in this, although I have to say I know her personally. I know her to be a fair and upright person.
Right. And in terms of just the kind of the awareness for this, I haven't seen that I know of much paid media to inform citizens. Your polls have been closed. Here's where you're going. I know the Secretary of State did some TV news appearances, but what are you hearing in terms of just the general awareness that there's been so many poll closures and people knowing where to go?
I get the sense that if you're a newer voter, it's new hat for you, and it's a little difficult maybe to find out where you're voting. That information is readily available, certainly online, that I have seen. That's in fact where I found my own voting place this year. But I think people can find it. It's just going to take them a little bit more time to do that, and I don't see any particular problems just yet. I checked in with a publisher in Warwick. It's the second largest city in the state. He was a little bit concerned. He had talked to his local board of canvassers in Warwick. They were concerned about a high voter turnout, again, because of the weather, perhaps. It seems to be going smoothly so far. I haven't heard of any other problems. A couple machines had a couple problems that they replaced quickly. So far, so good. I was also informed by the Secretary of State that they would have additional provisional ballots on hand for anybody who didn't have a photo ID at the time of voting.
And how do the provisional ballots work here? Because in other states, people were told if they weren't on the rolls or what have you, your provisional ballot will count. But in Arizona, for example, not all provisional ballots counted. In New York, we don't know if any of them are going to count yet. That's still up in the air.
It's my understanding that they will be counted here, and it's primarily a function of you're forgetting, say, your photo ID, and you're probably already on the rolls. We've had them use them in the past, and they've worked so far.
Photo ID is new here. It was voted on a few years ago. Do you think the majority of people are aware of that? We were just in Wisconsin a few weeks ago. There were issues there, not gigantic, but pretty noteworthy issues. On top of the poll closures and the photo ID, does this open up potential for not as high turnout as you could have seen?
I think the weather's going to play the biggest role right now as of today. I think also that if people will still go to the polls, and if they don't have the photo ID, they're going to get a provisional ballot. So we will get a fairly accurate counting, I think, of the number of people who came out to vote today.
How long does it take for those provisional ballots to come into the final tally?
I can't say with any certainty. I would probably say within a matter of days. Depends upon how close the election is. If it's a wide discrepancy and the total number of outstanding provisional ballots is much smaller than any number that could tie the race or turn the race, it might be more deliberate about it as opposed to expending more resources and making sure they get it done quicker.
And it just seems anecdotally to me, I don't know for sure, but we were in the east side of Providence, a bit of a wealthy area, and there were 2 or 3 polling stations within maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles of each other, whereas maybe less wealthy areas, more have been shut down, further distances. Do you think kind of certain areas, more polling stations have been kept open?
I can't speak with any authority on that. I don't know that. It would be a shame if that were the case, of course. And as I said, I'm a little bit critical of the fact that we have 34 fewer polling places open than we did in 2008. I think this election, at least on the surface of it, portended to have more people come out than even in 2008. We'll wait and see what the results are. We'll hear any feedback from anybody. I know that Common Cause, Rhode Island, has put out in the newspaper a hotline for people to report any type of discrepancies or problems that they had. I think the last thing we want is a contested election whereby people feel they've been cheated out of the vote. We heard in your home area in Brooklyn, some 125,000 people who had an issue with voting. I think that is the worst possible thing we can do in a democracy. Bottom line, it's not necessarily who wins or who loses, it's that we all get to participate as citizens.
Well, I congratulate Secretary Clinton. I must say that I am really concerned about the conduct of the voting process in New York State. And I hope that process will change in the future.
Off of the voting, the poll closures, I'm kind of curious because you look at the national, Congress, the Senate. I mean, I think there's one senator who's come out for Bernie Sanders. In the House, a handful. So that's kind of playing out on the state level too. You've mentioned another representative. You don't know of anyone else. Why do you think it is that the majority of representatives, senators, don't see what you see in terms of a Bernie Sanders?
I can't put the words in their mouth as to what reasons there are. I'm sure there'd be myriad.
You've been here 16 years. You know these people.
Well, there's a number of reasons. I mean, one, people want to associate with what they think is the winning horse. That Hillary had a large or sizable lead early on. I mean, Bernie started with 3% over a year ago, made Hillary look like a juggernaut that couldn't be caught. And of course, since then, he's been behind. Even as of weeks ago, he was behind, I think, at least 10 points here. So if you want to bet on a winner and you want something for yourself, then you bet on the winning horse. However, I like to think outside of the box, as Bernie has said, whereby I want the person with the best ideas that's going to do the best for the country and for the common good. So I don't necessarily look for who wins, but the best ideas and the best candidate.
And, something I found interesting is this argument where Bernie's ideals will never get through with the Republican House. I look at Hillary and I don't know a lot of the things she's talking about, why she would have a better chance. You obviously are in the state Senate here. You work, across party lines. The House, at times work with them. To me, Bernie has the highest approval rating in all of the Senate, and he has worked with Republicans on that side. So why is Secretary Clinton looked her plans more pragmatic? Because, for example, Obamacare, which she says she'll expand, I mean, they tried to repeal it 50 times.
Well, first, I think you have to think big. If you look at some of the predecessors of some of the ideas of Bernie Sanders, you can go back to Lyndon Baines Johnson and the Great Society, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the New Deal. You have to think big sometimes. You can't think within the box or a small confined box. People want to keep the American dream alive. And I think that's what Bernie is talking to. And he has no small task. I've called him more of a missionary than a politician in the cause of renewing the American dream. And people are ready for that message. People have lived long enough with just good enough or getting by or not even getting by. That's why his ideas have sparked a movement in this country. And Bernie knows that really, and it's not an easy thing to do, but he'd have to appeal from the bully pulpit directly to the people to get some of his programs passed. Now, he may not succeed with all of them, but I think it's much better to aim high and then maybe get something just a little bit lower than that than to aim medium or aim low and then maybe get that, realize that, or something even lower yet.
Yeah. At Rhode Island in particular, I mean, realistically, the economy has kind of been in the toilet for a little while, and I mean, you're one of the few cities in America that went bankrupt. That got attention.
Santa Falls.
In terms of Bernie's policies versus hers, how would it help Rhode Island? Because I'm sure Rhode Island has had issues with bad trade deals and things like that.
Yeah, certainly trade deals. We've seen a lot of manufacturing leave the state and go to other countries. We want fair deals, not free trade. That would be one. I certainly think health care, to make sure we actually do cover people in healthcare, so we probably wouldn't realize that much benefit on that particular issue. But the biggest issue, again, is money and politics. Does the government belong to the people, or does it belong to the people who make the contributions, the largest contributions? And I think to make change, we have to break through that wall. And his confronting Citizens United through a Supreme Court Justice nomination picks, I think represents one of the biggest things that could change life for the better, not just in Rhode Island, but for the whole country.
And I think the corporate media has been fixated on, he can't name one example where she's gotten, large donations and then, did a quid pro quo where she voted a certain way. But I think, to me, what Bernie's been trying to argue is it's not that black and white. It's more about what your priorities and values are based on those donations. How do you think the money in politics are specifically could impact a President Clinton?
I can't say what she'll do. Obviously, Bernie has influenced her positions and her platform, and that's for the better, I think. But again, you're right that you don't necessarily see black and white when it comes to helping the pharmaceutical companies or assisting Wall Street on legislation. It's more in shades of gray or degrees that it happens. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, had said that she went out and gave it hard to Wall Street executives for what had happened, and we had to bail them out. But how far did she go when she could go to Goldman Sachs and make many thousands of dollars on a speech to give to them? Obviously, they weren't too disappointed in her position. There's a lot of winking and nodding that goes on in this building. There's so many ways to skin a cat in terms of how you do your job that I think at least with Bernie, and I can't say what Hillary's going to do, but at least with Bernie, he is fairly black and white in that he's in the people's corner, and I don't question that based upon his record and based upon the integrity of the man.
You've seen in previous elections when young people are very enthused, even if their candidate wins, you see kind of a drop off, but particularly, if their candidate loses, maybe some deflation. What is the next step for this revolution? Because young people are still going to be drowning in student debt. Right. Young people are still going to want their politicians held accountable.
By the way, that would be a great thing for Rhode Island in terms of free tuition. I'm glad you brought that up. That is one big thing for Bernie.
Well, devil's advocate, because I hear from a lot of people, this tax on Wall Street speculation, it's not, A, it's not going to happen, but B, that's not going to cover college tuition.
Again, that is the goal. We'll see how far we can get towards that goal, but it beats the heck out of saying, well, we can't have a noble goal like that because it's not realistic. It needs to be realistic because that's where we need to go. I'm an educator, and 12 years of school publicly paid is woefully insufficient given the new economy that we're in. We need to go beyond that.
And in terms of the movement, you saw with Occupy Wall Street, which has similar themes, it kind of died down. It was a leaderless movement, as they called it. Do you think some of the Bernieites or Bernocrats, they call it, need to pivot from the online community attending rallies to maybe trying to aspire to your position?
Obviously, if he's not successful in the nomination process, he's going to next go to the platform of the Democratic Party to try to go through that means to an end. But yes, I think if they want to make it more of a permanent fixture and mobilize people and keep them mobilized, they will have to transition to some type of citizen effort or public effort to keep people involved. Not an easy task with how busy people are, and frankly busy people working just to make ends meet. But it's something that needs to be done, and I think he's put his finger directly on the pulse, which is we do need a political revolution. And I think one of the things that he may speak to Secretary Clinton about will be the Citizens United decision and who her pick might be. And this is, again, if he's not successful, because that is a pivotal decision. If that could be overturned and we can regulate the way money is spent in politics, I think we have a chance of making these other needed reforms possible.
And my last question is, I keep seeing on TV, and you see with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Secretary Clinton, it kind of this expectation that if Senator Sanders isn't successful, his supporters need to, fall in line with her, and because we're all one Democratic Party. From what I see from going around the country, is young people don't particularly. It's not the first thing in their mind that I'm a Democrat. That's not what this movement's about.
Of course, a lot of people are independents around the country. That's true.
So, what do you think about the establishment obviously saying Bernie needs to do what she did if he's not successful, and his followers need to support her just to avoid a Trump or Cruz?
Well, at first, she did fall in and back then Senator Obama, and I was actually supporting him, and he was the outside candidate at one time, and most people had supported her at that time. But she also became Secretary of State. I don't think that was just a coincidence. So I think Senator Sanders is going to be able to influence, I hope, at least some of the positions she has that be to the betterment of the people that are in the movement, the Sanders Revolution. And I think people, given the choice between a Donald Trump and a Secretary of State Clinton, I think that will bring people around more than anything else that she can do to appease the people that are supporting Bernie Sanders.
You don't think that young people necessarily, owe her their vote just because...
Nobody owes any vote to anybody. You have to earn your vote. And when people say, those are my voters, those are my votes, that's a lot of bunk. You earn those votes, and people honor you with giving their vote to you for the positions you take and for the measure of the kind of person you are, your character. And Bernie has more than earned those votes. And I think given the choice with Mr. Trump, I think people will see that we do have a lot more in common with Hillary Clinton than we do with Donald Trump as Democrats.
Principals calling, we're out of session. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.